Let's take this up and also further analyze the situation as it stands on day 19th of the Israel-Hamas war. To talk about that and more, we are joined, as you can see on the screens, by Ambassador Pinak Ranjan Chakravarty, his former secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs India and former Deputy Chief of Mission Tel Aviv. Ambassador, welcome to DD India News Hour. The diplomatic row between the UN and Israel has gotten bigger. We just heard from the UN Secretary General. His final clarification has also come in. How do you see this escalation and where do you see this headed?
Of course, this had to happen because of the statement that the UNSG made. And Israel, I suppose, is in no mood to accept criticism at this time when it has suffered such a massive and barbarous terrorist attack. And there is no mood in Israel to go into what everybody talks about as the root cause, etc. But that's there, I mean, in the sense that there is a history to all this conflict. But then I think the UN Secretary General said some things that obviously created misunderstanding and of course provoked Israel into saying whatever it said. And then the UN Secretary General had to come and sort of rectify or whatever, give an explanation. Look, he obviously has a difficult job in trying to balance his statements between the Israelis and the Palestinians. So I think this is something that that will pass. I mean, I think they have both made their points, etc. And this is becoming, apart from the actual conflict where physical damage, etc., is being done and people are dying, it's also become a very largely a propaganda war as to who did what and who started it and what's the background and what, that the Palestinians, via the Hamas have been provoked, etc. So this is becoming a very complicated and complex issue. But there should be no doubt that Hamas, what it did, I mean, we can discuss why it did it, but what it did and is unpardonable, and it has to be condemned. And I think that most of the world has realized that, and they have condemned this Hamas attack. But then sometimes you have to go back and say, why did this happen? There are so many reasons why Hamas did it, and I don't want to speculate here. But the point is that the UN is trying to play a balancing game, and both sides obviously are, trying to influence the UN, and the UN itself is, divided in the sense that no resolution can pass the Security Council without the veto being exercised by the US in favor of Israel. So I think this is the situation at the moment, and it has to be, the military aspects or whatever the Israel decides to do is a different question. But I think the geopolitics of it and the discussions that have been taking place in the UN is, of course, I mean, that won't affect, I think, the ultimate decision that Israel makes.
Right.
With the support, obviously, of the Muslims.
Tensions seem to have only come to a head with this because there are reports that suggest that at least 2 phone calls were made by the UN chief, but they were not attended to by the Israeli Prime Minister since the October 7th. So this is not a one-off incident. Now, meanwhile, are we in at the final stages of the countdown to a ground invasion by Israel into Gaza? Because some analysts think that Israel may be hesitating on its ground offensive because of the complexities that are involved with urban combat. And I was earlier talking to Amritpal Singh, a reporter, who said that Israel's strategy has been to weaken Hamas leadership through bombardments first before moving in with the ground invasion. What do you think?
I think a full-scale ground invasion is probably not in Israel's interest, and I think the U.S. administration and President Biden have also been, I think, for trying to persuade Israel, don't do it. And, don't try and occupy Gaza again, because Israel was in occupation of Gaza, and they left Gaza in 2005. removing all the settlements and all the Jewish, Israelis who had settled there in different sort of, settlements. So I think Israel will have to think twice, and Israel may be thinking that instead of occupying Gaza, it might be better to do some coordinated and precise action by its security forces, particularly the commandos and the others, to target the Hamas, which I think Israel is prepared to do, and I think they will do it. And Hamas, they have declared that their goal that Hamas will have to eradicate Hamas. Now, obviously, it's a tall order. How do you eradicate Hamas? You may eradicate their leadership, but what about the ideology? You cannot eradicate the ideology. And there will be many more who will come up and take over that mantle of the leadership or the ideology of the Hamas. Because it's a problem it's a long-standing problem. It's nothing, it's not been solved. The two-state solution that the UN had proposed in 1948, and the Arabs sort of refused to accept it, which I think was a fatal mistake. If they had accepted, then today we wouldn't have had that problem. So I think it's not going to go away very quickly. And neither is Israel prepared to sort of make concessions, nor the other side. So I think we are going to see a lot more violence and a lot more sort of protracted kind of negotiations. If it happens at all. But today, I think what will happen is, I think the immediate prospect of the war spreading into other areas is I think worrying.
Right, I was coming to that because we've seen the various skirmishes that have happened between Lebanon and Israel as well, and we've seen the crossfire that has happened between Syria and Israel too, and there have been fears that the violence could escalate to different fronts. Hamas, Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad leaders also met at an undisclosed location. Do you think there's a real threat of this conflict widening and engulfing the region to an extent?
Well, it will happen through these kind of Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad and other actors, non-state actors, as we say, in Syria, etc. But I think Israel is quite capable of dealing with them. They have done it before. And the point is that they do not have the capability to defeat Israel. And I think that is a little bit of a surprise, because they know that they will not win, yet they keep trying, which only shows their desperation, in the sense that they have been trying to, for an independent Palestine for so many years, and they simply cannot be doing. And they also feel that the Palestinian Authority, which is the legitimate authority representing Israel, is unable to do anything to go back to the two-state solution. And Israel has been nibbling away at the territories in West Bank, particularly. So they see it as a, make or break event, in the sense that if you don't do it now, then we will never achieve our, independent Palestine. So there's a lot of desperation and in this whole effort, and of course egged on by Iran, and which is also committed to wiping out Israel from the map of the world, and also that they felt that that Israel was getting away with a lot of things that they didn't like, and this was and also that the fact that the Abraham Accords was normalizing relationships between Israel and the Arab countries. So the Palestinian cause was kind of seen to be sliding down in priority, and it was so they had to. I think one of the things was that they had to ensure that through these barbarous terrorist attacks and all these things, sparking off the conflict, brought back the Palestinian cause onto the international stage.
Right.
Whether that will help them in solving any issues is a different question.
Right. We leave it at that, Ambassador. Thank you so much for joining us with your perspective on day 19th of the Israel-Hamas war.